That's life in general. You're never going to be happy. You get to that goal. All that happens when you reach a goal is you want more. You're never going to be happy. So just be happy. Keep striving. Be happy. You're already there. It's not the goal, the journey, man. And it's taken me a long time to realize that. Hi, I'm Snake, the creator, writer of View of the Phoenix Trees, 4-issue miniseries comic. First issue's already been done by Kickstarter. Next one hopefully will be coming out again in Kickstarter. And you can find me on Instagram, Snake87SMW, on Facebook, Scott Matthew Watson. And you're watching and listening to Two Geeks Talking.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Two Geeks Talking is an entertainment industry interview show where we interview the creative people from the comic, film, TV, movie, and video game industries. And of course, I'm your host, Kurt Sasso. We are joined today by a very talented creator, writer, and letterer of an amazing comic, View of the Phoenix Trees. We're joined by the ever-talented Snake. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, man. Thank you very much for talking to me and stuff. I'm sorry I'm not in the background, in normal background. I'm running around today a little bit, but I wanted to obviously.
It's great. I love different locations. It's always wonderful to see there. It's not just your standard flat wall behind you. I love it. That's great here. You know, for those that don't know anything about yourself as a creative person, tell us who you are and what you're bringing to Two Geeks Talking today.
So, View of the Phoenix Trees is a historical autobiography with fantasy elements interweaved. It tells the story of my grandparents meeting, my grandfather being an immigrant from China, moving to Vietnam, meeting my grandmother, their love and connection, forging a family together, but then also having personal problems, alcoholism, gambling, things like that, and just general neuroses, shall we say. And then, it hits the fan with the Vietnam War, cascading into their lives. They have to live through that, suffer the horrors of that. And then after that period in time, every Chinese immigrant got kicked out of Vietnam. So my family lost farm, temple, flat, house. They're quite well off, and they lost all of that. Had to go on a boat. They were exiled basically from the country. Had to go on a boat for 6 months. 6 weeks. Got dumped in a camp in Macau, where they lived there for 2 years, and then finally ending up arriving on the UK, on the shores of the UK. My passion for comics, I love them. I've always been a storyteller, grew up watching a lot of films and things like that. And then it took me a long time to kind of get into creating comics. But then during lockdown, I started making short comics. And now I don't want to make films. I don't want to make TV. I worked in the film industry and TV industry for a little bit of time as well as a prop man and a script reader. I don't want to do that now. All I care about is comics. I don't see it as a stepping stone to make films or whatever. I think the medium is a brilliant thing in itself. It's perfect for me. I enjoy comics. So yeah.
So when you were writing this particular comic series, what did you learn during the research portion of this when you were talking with your family and things like that?
Yeah, so I read quite a few books on the Ho people or the boat people. They're the immigrants that left the country on various boats from Vietnam and sort of scattered all around the world. I read quite a few of those kind of books. And I actually went to a Comic-Con, or like one of the biggest like festivals in the UK called Thought Bubble. And I was sitting in the library area and chatting to this lady who runs it. And she's like, someone already did this. Obviously, the story is totally different to my story because it's their own experience. But she was like, this actually happened. And someone did a biography about that. And I was like, no way. This would have been great if I had read this before I wrote mine. But it doesn't have the fantasy elements and it's quite different. There's quite a lot of differences. But I was like, oh, wow. And so I read that comic as well, which had a lot of parallels to my comic. And then also, yeah, just interviewing my mom, my dad, well, my dad being a mediator for my mom, it brought me closer to my family's heritage. I'm not a very family orientated person. I'm not that close to the rest of my family, which I have like a massive, sprawling, large family. I mean, there's like 4 siblings in this, but my mum has 20 siblings. It's nuts. Yeah, it's bonkers. So you can't do that. you gotta cut down the characters because you're gonna get lost in there. Well, what was kind of interesting was obviously all the events, all the things that happen really in it are pretty much fact. I've taken them, but the characters, because I don't really know my granddad because all he did was speak Vietnamese, and I'd just see him in his flat smoking a cigarette, playing mahjong, and he'd just sort of smile at me, and that was our interaction. And then he passed and he died. I had to take a lot of license with the people, the characters. They're my own fashioned people I know. They're bits and pieces taken from me, taken from people I know, and then forming them into actual fully formed characters, which was a lot of fun, to be honest.
Gives you that creative freedom that you need, especially when you're blending fantasy with historical aspects, especially in a biography setting. There, stories can be embellished, obviously, but obviously there's too much historical fact in terms of that particular migration and that the situations that you were occurring there. When you were creating your characters, is there anything that you learned from your family that was like, how can I clean this up, or how can I make this, it still tells the truth of what they went through?
There is a deviation. My grandmother died in Macau. It's not going to ruin any parts of the story, but somewhat deviates from the story that I have. It was topical at the time, so I kind of wanted to add in lockdown. So there's a portion of lockdown in there. It works really well with the story, I think, and it was kind of relevant at the time when I was writing it. But that also doesn't occur because there's various other just details that I just changed up and cleaned up and things like that, that just worked. But then my mum would tell me these really interesting little bits of pieces, like a really interesting imagery about B-52 bombers bombing. And she just talked about being in a bedroom, just listening to them. And then so I took that, and it's instead you've got her banging her feet on the walls, lying on the bed and banging her feet on the wall, and suddenly banging her feet on the wall, the bombing, and it kind of plays into that. And I was like, that'd be really good, actually. It was just really nice how she sort of sparked my imagination and such. And that's what you want. That's what this whole idea and their history gave me, this spark of imagination for what I could write about.
Let's talk about who the team is with yourself and your artist, because the one thing that truly struck me with this is the beautiful color. We see it in the lower third. Those that are listening to the podcast version of this, you're really missing out on some really beautiful, amazing colors and tones and things like that. Who's the team around this amazing comic series?
So it's Hernan Gonzalez, who's the main line art, penciler, inker. It was really interesting because he does a lot more horror-based stuff, but I loved his style. And I just thought he could bring this kind of photographic realism and documentary style to the main story. And then he always has this partner who works with called Damien Lefferty. He's the colorist who came along and colored the pages. From that, I really did want to have a different style to really make the two stories, both the historical biography element and the fantasy element, completely separate. I really wanted to show them in a completely separate way. So then my publisher managed to connect me with Andrew Drillen. And so he does the sort of fantastical element of it. And then, yeah, the images for the pictures below that you're seeing there, that will be some of the alternative artist covers. Publisher managed to connect me with some really fantastic, that gave me some alternative covers that were really interesting.
Talk about this process here. You have 4 issues that you want to create for this particular series. Issue 1 was successful with Kickstarter. That's amazing to see. Congratulations on that here. When's issue 2 and 3 and 4 and everything like that? I'm curious on that.
I was hoping that the shops would release it with just having an issue 1. But like my publisher got back to me the other day and he was like, no, you're going to have to make all 4 so that they'll sell it in the shop. So I was like, oh. It's really great because I love connecting with fans with Kickstarter, but I also just want my book out there. So I really would love to have my book out there, but it's fine. It's okay. So we're running another Kickstarter kind of soon, probably in the next month or 2. My publisher's just currently finishing off the first issue. And then obviously people can still get the first issue. They can pick up the second and the first, whatever. Throughout the year, we'll just keep doing it, really. I have another horror comic. The first 3 issues, the first story arc is pretty much done, and I'm using the same publisher. So we kind of want to do that as well. So I think that's going to be done in May. So we're going to fit the second issue in of View of the Phoenix Trees somewhere in that. I've gone a bit crazy lately. I've got like 4 comic projects I'm working on at the minute. So yeah, it keeps me alive. I love it.
You only have so much time in the day, though. Do you sleep?
You know what? So I was trying to pay, because obviously artists are so expensive, but also they're worth it. You want the best thing you can do. I was working 2 jobs and I was like working 6 days a week. And I was just like, I can't do this. And I had so much more lettering to do from all these other things. So I was like, I can't do this job anymore. I mean, it's great having extra money so I can pay them, but I thought, oh, so I bailed out. I'm doing a web comic currently. I've never done a web comic before. So I'm trying to learn all the programs like Clip Studio. Yeah, exactly. So I'm trying to do the vertical scrolling thing at the minute. View the Phoenix Trees has got a real special place in my heart just because it is so personal. I love the artwork. Like if I saw that comic, like I don't want to, obviously I'm going to big up my own comic, but I also like if I saw that comic on the stand, I would be like, I want to get that. I love just, and that's not my writing. Gonna, I'm not saying about my writing, but that's Damien's work. That's, Andrew's work. That's all the people connected in it. It's all their work. The art looks so beautiful.
Collaborations are really impressive, especially in the comic scene itself here. I'm in TV and film as well too. I do more DMT stuff, but I love collaborations with the creative space because there's just so much versatility out there that you just love to see new people. And this is why I keep doing the show after 16 years. It's because I see new people and new talent, and it's just incredible. When you were getting your artist for the first time, what was a piece of artwork that you got back that was just way better than what was in your script?
So this is the key thing about why I make comics. The greatest moment ever. I mean, I wouldn't maybe say it's as good as sex, but maybe, who knows? I don't know if I'm in a really good mood. But the best thing in the world is you write a script, you give it over to your artist. You think they're going to do a great job. They're going to do a really good job, and they're going to really boil down the essence of what your words are trying to say. But they give you back a picture, or they give you back a panel, or whatever cover, and it's 20 times better, and it's just better than what you thought. And that's just the best feeling in the world. That's why I love comics, and that's why I moved away from screenwriting and things, because I just like the process of making comics. I love the collaboration. I love working with the same artist again, but I also love connecting with new artists who suit the style, because obviously each comic book, I mean, you can work with the same artist, yeah, but I really like homing the style exactly to what the comic and what the story requires, what it needs. Like, I just started work on this new web comic and just connected with that artist, and I was just really lucky. He's really nice, he's really good, and he's really on it time wise, and I need that. So, I'm paying you. I was working with another artist, and I will name no names. He gave me pages like 7 days later, and like didn't tell me. When I messaged him a couple of times, said, "Hey man, you okay?" And I can't work with someone like that, just because I'm trying to keep on deadlines for the fans. If I'm going to make a web comic, I'm trying to release it at the same time so we can expect the product that they'll come to be happy to receive it on like the 7th of the month every week. It's a bit of a minefield out there. Sometimes you work with people you don't want to work with. Sometimes people you just don't gel. But when that personality and when you gel, like Damien, Hanan, those guys are awesome. They're great, and they'll really give you their time. They'll really put all their effort in, and you feel it.
It's great to see not only like-minded people focusing on a single goal. That's a wonderful end result there, but it's that working process of, are you more of a micromanager style of writer or creator, or are you more of a, hey, here's the general guideline, I'll let your art speak for what I've created? Like, how is that back and forth with the creative process?
I learned a lot being a director and producer, making student films. I went to film school. I won some awards for my films and stuff. The key thing is, you can be James Cameron, and James Cameron's smart. He can do every job. He can do every job because he's that smart, but he knows not to do that. And it's the same with being like a creator in a comic style. You just need to know what everyone wants from you. You just need to know what they want in order to do a good job. And I think that's being a good director, being a good creator, being a good producer, being a good writer, is being able to facilitate what people need and what they require so they can give you the best work possible. That's what I try and do. I can draw, but I'm not that great an artist. But I think about what I would want if I was drawing my comic. I think Scott Snyder said this in an interview, which was kind of interesting that way as a teacher. You have to change your style as well to what artists want. Like, I haven't done that yet. I don't do Marvel style. I just don't. No artist has said, "Oh, I really would need Marvel style scripts." You know, and I'm sure your audience kind of know as well. So I just generally write normal scripts with a dialogue, with a main specific description for what I want drawn. But what I would say is, if someone came to me, an artist, and said, "I want Marvel style, I need you to do that," I'd be like, "All right, I've seen what you can produce. I want the best for this comic. I'll adapt the way I work." And I think that's quite important to do, because it is a give and to process. And which is why, I get all my artists to sign a contract that says this product is 50-50 ours. It's not, even though I come to them with the idea, it would never be made without their input. So I think that's quite important to do a 50-50 split,
It also gives that level of respect in terms of professionalism. And that's something that is definitely needed in whatever project you're doing, whatever creative space you're doing. If you can be professional on both sides, where ego is at the door, you don't have to worry about that stuff, and you're working towards that end goal, then you're doing a good job. And so you're going to work with that person in the future or people in the future. And it'll just be one of those things where you just enjoy what you're creating. And if it takes off, that's awesome. If it doesn't, then you've created something that is beneficial to still both of you from that space.
Totally. Yeah, I totally agree. I think creatives like us, people listening out there, we just need it. We require it. We need to work with people, food for our soul. And yeah, obviously, if it takes off, that's great. But if not, well, work on the next one. And that's what you do. You just keep feeding your soul. Yeah.
Everyone usually asks, what's the wisest piece of advice or what's the most BS piece of advice you've ever received? But what is the second wisest piece of advice you've received that's stuck with you in your career?
Second, wow. I wouldn't say I've got a career yet. I'm still working on trying to create a career. But mind you, you're never going to be happy. So, I mean, and I guess that's one of the most interesting bits of advice I've got from podcasts, from interviews, from anything. And that forwards on, not even just to work, that's life in general. You're never going to be happy. You get to that goal. All that happens when you reach a goal is you want more. You get to a comic, an image, and you're going to be like, oh, I really want to work at Dark Horse now, or I really want my Preacher, my seminal work, my Sandman. You're never going to be happy. So just be happy, I guess. Just keep striving, be happy. You're already there. I don't care what anyone says. It's not the goal, it's the journey, man. And it's taken me a long time to realize that. And I'm still not happy, but I try to be, and I try to be mindful and just keep thinking about that.
But that's a good mindset to have because you understand the goalposts are always going to be moved. You understand that your next goal will get you towards a better progression of yourself. And if you can understand that early in life, that's wonderful. People these days, we don't realize what we have until, we're in the ground. Let's enjoy the small wins, I think is a better terminology as well, too. And I appreciate that you're looking positively at your creativity and you understand that it's one of those aspects where if you enjoy what you're doing, you never work a day in your life type deal.
Yeah, I mean, I still got to do like most people. I've got a 9 to 5 job that I have to do kind of thing, but I've been really excited and not let that job get me down or any other things in life lately because I'm working on 4 comics. It's really awesome. It's really fun. I find, you just find the money to pay these artists from somewhere, whatever. You make shortcuts. You maybe don't pay for the best art in the world. You pay for an artist you can afford. She's still good and still fits in with the story ideas, but maybe you take a little bit of a cut on the precision of the artwork. But you're still making stuff, still creating. I would hate to be that kind of person I'm just waiting to do my masterpiece and I'm going to write this magnum opus and I'm going to wait and I'm going to save up all the right money. I remember first long form comic, this horror comic I made. The reason why I started making it, I didn't have the money and I just threw my savings pretty much at it. And then by the end of it, I was like, I've got a comic. It was fine. I've recouped my savings back again. I managed to find savings back again. I guess what I'm trying to say from this is just don't put it off. Just if you want to make a comic, just do it and teach yourself and learn. The reason why a letter was initially because I wanted to cut costs and I didn't want to pay someone else. I was paying already for art. And now I love it. I love lettering. It's like a really good way of me having another hand, another pass at the story. So I write it, I do multiple redrafts on it, pass it to the artist, and let's say maybe he does something better, makes my writing pointless. He tells it in his pictures, so it's not necessary. So I get another pass as a letterer, and I can just cut that out. And that's really helpful. And also allowing the lettering to unify itself with the art was perfect. And there's multiple examples of that. Way better letterers than I do that. But those kind of people that I try and look at for my lettering style.
Give me some examples of letters you like.
Richard Starkins, Todd McKean. Those are the two really big, and they are like the biggest two in my opinion, like in terms of lettering, and for ample reason. Like Sandman, Battle Chasers. The lettering's so interesting and so brilliant. And then, did you see the new comic book, the new Sandman comic book, the one that's set after, and which is drawn by H.G. Williams or something like that? I can't remember his name. And that's really interesting lettering, which really provokes character in the letters. You understand it just adds more and complements the drawings and the art. And I think all of it needs to work in unison order, kind of thing.
What are your thoughts on, say, using different colors for the speech bubbles per character and colors for like kind of giving that blend of color theory with lettering in terms of comics?
Yeah, and I agree with that. So my webcomic at the minute, nothing splashy. It's very simple speech bubbles, but it's also because it's black and white. I love when color is added. Like for instance, like in a lot of Ben Temple-Smith comics, the lettering really complements his art, and you feel that character, that scuzzy, dirty horror style, and it just works so well. And so I did try and emulate that in example, View of the Phoenix Trees. It's quite gritty and scuzzy, but also quite simplistic. I don't do any bombastic kind of titles or try not to do too much, but it's all quite gritty. It has that kind of documentary style to complement the art, which is quite gritty as well. I was talking to like Henan the other day, and we were talking about how much we love Sean Phillips. And I was saying, like, yeah, your art kind of reminds me of a dirty Sean Phillips, like a scuzzy Sean, which I actually like more because I like my dirtiness, that kind of thing. I mean, I think Sean Phillips is perfect, Red Brubaker stuff, but like I like that my artist is just a little dirty as well. It gives that character.
It's not clean like a Marvel or DC. You don't always need constant clean lines or clean anything like that. It just, like you said, character in lines, character in speech, and the writing and art speaks for itself. What was an early experience where you learned that language had power?
Good question. That's a very good question. I should have prepared that. I don't. I love language. Words rule. Like my little thing is words are my world. That's like my little speech thing I put on the end of like all my emails. It might not be in the first, but it was interesting. So my father's really old school. We get on fine now, but obviously growing up we didn't really get on very well. And I have a real big potty mouth. I swear like a motherfucker. Anyway, I just thought I'd say it swear while I'm saying. I don't know, like my father, he never liked me doing that. Really hates me swearing. And that's kind of because of the way he's grown up. He's from a completely different generation. So I'm like 37 and he's 82, born in a different generation. He's quite an old guy, but he keeps fit. He loves my vocabulary and my lexical use, and he knows I have a big vocabulary. He reads some of my spoken word poems, and he's like, I don't know half the words you use. But then he gets so bent out of shape about me swearing. I always say to him, but I choose to use the word cunt because of the way how powerful, how punctual, how plosive it is. I use that word for a specific reason. I'll use, shit, fuck, whatever. I'll use whatever for a reason, for a specific reason. It's not that I'm just a potty mouth and I can't think of another word to use. I'm specifically using a swear word because it works. And he doesn't get that. He just completely says you shouldn't use them. There's a power in words there that upsets him so much. I used to go out with a girl who's like a mid-level stand-up comedian. So I'd go out and see her shows and stuff. I did one of her stand-up courses, and I realized that, swear words are really funny. They're very funny. The use of you putting swear words in scripts rather than using a normal word makes it 20% or whatever, 25%, whatever. It's not an exact science, but it makes it funnier. So I guess those are two instances where I found that words had power.
Everyone has one person that inspired them on their path to where they are today. Who was that for you?
I think this is a really interesting question because, like, a lot of people, maybe like 3 months ago or maybe like a month ago, would say Neil Gaiman. They won't say that now. And I wasn't going to say that, but his work, not his personality or the things he's done, had a very big impact on me. But I'd probably go for Garth Ennis. I'm going to be honest with you. I still love Garth's work. I reread Preacher again recently, and it's my favorite thing on the planet. It's just the perfect story, in my personal opinion. Well, I read that comic at a really young age, and it really did inform me about the way I tell stories. In terms of that story, is he's referencing everything that's awesome. War. No, no, no. I don't mean war is awesome. I mean war films. Like all my favorite films, he's referencing. Like for instance, war films, Western films like Unforgiven, things like that. He has a very complimentary taste in films to myself, while also having such heart, like it being a story about a love triangle of three friends and their breakups and their issues and problems. And yeah, so it's just perfect. I think the work excites me more. As we've seen, people can break you and break expectations. You find out something about your favorite writer, and you realize he's kind of a dick. Like I had that with Brian Wood. I heard it out recently. Like I'm a massive fan of Brian Wood. I love DMZ. DMZ is like incredible, and a lot of his other work. But then I found out he's kind of a bit of a dick, and he's had some improprieties towards women as well. So then all you care about is I can divorce myself from the work. All I think about is the work rather than the person behind it. I don't know them. I just hear these stories and these articles, and I don't know the truth.
Yeah, never meet your heroes.
Apart from Keanu Reeves, that will never, that will always stay true. He will always be awesome, hopefully.
Keanu Reeves, Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Gosling, yeah. From a professional standpoint, you have created comics. You have been in the TV and film industry. So professionally, you're successful for what you have created, especially in the comic scene here. And I can't wait to see your other issues as well, too, in the coming future. Do you consider yourself personally successful?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I guess so. I'm really excited. I'm really happy that I wrote something. The stuff I'm writing now is probably the best stuff I've made, and it shows because publishers, even smaller publishers, have been interested in my work. They are interested in my work and they like it and they want to publish it. And obviously, that's a sign. That's a sign that people are moved by your work. They're interested. They're entertained, and it sort of hits on an emotional level. I think it takes a long time. Took a long time. I'm 37, so I've been doing this a while. I'm not one of those big guys like Brian K. Wood or something like that. I'm at the start of my journey, I'd say, but it's really nice that books are being published now. It feels good about that. But it's a weird one because we talk about people who don't get this or don't do this. I'm a budding comic writer. They're like, oh, that must be so much fun and stuff like that. And it is so much fun. That's why we do it. But you're in a room by yourself writing. It's lonely. And so you just hope that all that time that you took, all those hours, those 5,000 words that you wrote, you hope that it's for a reason. And so, yeah, it does feel good when they start getting published and things. So, yeah, I'm looking forward as well, to meeting fans and stuff and just comic fans and other people connecting at festivals and conventions as well. I think I'm probably going to go to the Lakes Festival this year and a couple of other ones around the UK just to get my stuff out there, connect with people who like-minded people. The reason why I think there's still room for me to get a bigger audience. I mean, I don't have that many followers or anything like that yet. I don't feel. I mean, maybe I'm being modest, but I don't feel so. But the reason why I'm doing a webcomic that's free, I haven't put it out yet, but at the end of this month, the beginning of next month, it's probably going to be put out. The reason why I'm making a webcomic and just putting it out for free is just so people can read my writing, get into my comics, my stories. You never stop.
The reverse of success is failure. How do you deal with your failures?
I've got a comic at the minute, started lettering. It hasn't got a home yet, but I've had some interest from a few publishers, smaller horror publishers, fantasy publishers. And I did just a really quick pass on the lettering. The artist took a little bit longer than I thought. So my deadline was kind of messed up and I had to start some other projects. I had to finish off a few of the Phoenix trees. I couldn't really letter it properly. And he got back to me and he was like, this lettering is not good. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, that's fine, that's right. So I said, look at it next month when I had a bit more time. And then he sent me like an email back with like a detailed description of everything of what was wrong with it. And he said, I've spoken to a couple of artists and they said this as well. And I was like, and at first I was pretty pissed and annoyed. I didn't mean to be. And I didn't shout at him or anything like that, but I was a bit like, it knocked my ego, shall we say, a bit. But then, you look at it and you understand, you realize that you just want the best for the comic. And, the writer wasn't doing it maliciously. He was just trying to make it better. And I was trying a different kind of lettering style with this new comic, which I haven't really done before. And I just didn't have time, to be honest. And so I've already made some changes. I'm going to sit down this month and sort it out. If he says it's a problem, then we're collaborators. It's probably a problem. So I'll need to look at it. But it sometimes can be a bit hard to take, especially when, the last three projects, everyone's like, oh, that one's really good. It's really awesome. It drops you down a peg, but then you kind of need that, I guess. I personally thought his second email wasn't necessary. He highlighted the problem to me, and then he kind of went out of his own, he stepped out of his own comfort zone. He told me how to do my job, which I did have words with him about, but, I also understood that there's a problem there. You have to be diplomatic and you kind of have to work together and just focus on the problem and realize that there is a problem if someone's saying there's a problem, because otherwise, why would anyone say that? I'm just trying more bombastic titles that were a bit more colored and crazy. I think I'm still finding it. It's like finding your flow with writing, still finding my lettering flow to make sure that all the letters kind of cohesively work with the art. And I don't think it did with that project. So I'm going to work on it this month.
The younger generation is looking at your work and they're becoming inspired to be creative in their own way, whether it's as a comic writer or a letterer or whatever the case may be. You're inspiring them down this creative path. How can they inspire the generation that follows them?
Like, artists don't primarily want to inspire other artists. I think you want to make the work. And then the byproduct of that is, if you make a good piece of work, you're inspiring other people. I mean, it's a byproduct. It's a fantastic thing, and that's amazing. And you want to be responsible, obviously. It always comes back to just doing the work, doing what's in your soul, how you feel about the world, your ideology about the world, creating something that represents that ideology. And hopefully you do it in a responsible, smart, intelligent way that people can connect with. It's interesting, I guess, as well, because, and that's going to change and fluctuate with time. If time doesn't stay still, culture, society changes. We have different needs, different requirements. So I guess, inspiring the new generations will be keeping up to date with what's going on. I think filmmakers, especially, filmmaking is a young person's game, in my opinion. It's a young person's game. Every single filmmaker who's gotten older isn't as good. Now, that's a generalization, but like all the classics, like Oliver Stone, Coppola, especially, all these people, I do not rate Coppola and I do not rate Oliver Stone anymore. And I love their early films, like Godfather and Platoon are incredible. But then, I mean, even Scorsese, like, I like Scorsese's new films, but Departed has nothing on Taxi Driver. Goodfellas has, you know what I mean? Like, Goodfellas is so much better than The Irishman, in my personal opinion. It's difficult to stay relevant, and I have to. And then you can inspire and you can influence the younger generation to make good art if you keep yourself relevant and you keep being good. And maybe it requires a different medium to do that, like comics.
Once you get into de-aging your actors you've had for the last 40 years, you're kind of losing your touch, I think. It is what it is. But maybe that's just me. I don't know. If your life was a film or a comic, what would its title be? And what would its soundtrack be?
I know exactly this one. I know exactly this one. I did this. I did this. I was high one time and I came up with this completely. It would be Pretty Lights, Finally Moving. And then, oh my God, I can't remember the title now. Oh my God, darn. Oh yeah, that was it. A Stain on the Coattails of Existence. Underdog Story.
Love it. That's awesome. So when are you gonna make that into a comic? There you go.
I have. I've written a 5-page short comic. Really annoying. I wrote it because I was going to go to Thought Bubble, and in 2000 AD they had this competition for a 5-page comic. You enter it. It was like a raffle for who gets to pitch the idea. So I've still got the idea. It's there. And I think I've got the editor's email. So I'm going to message him soon and be like, look, I've still got this idea. You need to listen to it. Give me just 5 minutes, man. If anyone from 2000 AD is listening, please get in contact with me. You're going to love this idea. This idea is awesome.
Well, I hate to say it, but that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for listening, guys. Thank you. Take it easy.
Before I let you go, where can we find you? How can we support you? Where can we find View of the Phoenix Trees and anything else you need to promote?
Yeah, I mean, you can just type in View of the Phoenix Trees on Kickstarter and it'll come up. I think the second issue Kickstarter, you can sign up to it, basically. It's not open yet, but you can sign up to it and then you'll get confirmations come through about when it opens. And you can reach me, as said, on Snake87SMW on Instagram, on Facebook as Scott Matthew Watson, which is my real name, but keep it quiet. Shh.
Well, like I said, that is this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. You can, of course, find this interview and 1,200 plus others on our YouTube channel because our website's going through a revamp. YouTube.com/TGT Media. It's Two Geeks Talking. That's TWO. You can find the podcast at twogeekstalking.podbean.com or just search Two Geeks Talking wherever you get your podcasts. And as I say every week, everyone has a story to tell. It's up to me to help bring that out. Thanks for listening and watching on Two Geeks Talking.